Hi, everyone. Welcome to the newest episode of the Brave Productions podcast.
Hello.
We are Dave and Brittany. Brittany and Dave, Brave. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be breaking down the new Wonka film. We're going to be talking about, how it made us feel, what we liked about it, what we maybe thought could have been better, and what it brings to movies as we go into 2024.
So, let's just get right to it.
Okay.
Directed by Paul King, starring Timothy Chalamet. What did you think of the movie?
Well, let me preface this by, right?
Preface, yeah.
Preface, okay.
Yep.
Well, let me preface it by saying this is not a bash in any way. We are just trying to be genuine on the thoughts and feelings that stem from this movie. But overall, I thought it was an okay movie. There were a lot of aspects of the movie that I actually enjoyed, and then there were some that I thought kind of fell flat and could have been done differently. Also had new ideas for this fresh take on Wonka.
Yeah, and I've obviously been inspired by the original. Like, the first thing is the notes from the original Imagination song. But then they've pumped it full of a lot more, like, sweetness. There was something, like, kind of like chocolate, something bitter about this 1971 version that added to the flavor. As it were.
That's good.
That was missing in this, and it's replaced by just sweet. Visually as well as content-wise. This one, I think maybe our anticipation was high.
Yeah.
Because we like Paul King as a director. He did Paddington 1 and Paddington 2, which are... Paddington 2 is one of our favorite movies.
Absolutely.
And so I think we had high expectations. And in that sense, it's very similar to Paddington, but it's almost like... they just made Wonka a human life Paddington, because he's just super sweet and super loving and doesn't really have any faults except for, like, innocence and naivete. Like, everything else about him is perfect, or everything else about him is perceived as, like, he's just a good person, a nice person. But in the 71 version, Gene Wilder, you're not sure about him the whole time.
What is this, Wonka? Some kind of fun house?
Why, having fun?
There's this... idea that maybe he's a good guy, maybe he's a bad guy, you're unsure. And I was never unsure that he was going to do the right thing or be the hero of the story.
This is supposed to be young Wonka, so maybe him as a young boy is maybe more joyful and has glee and hasn't really been jaded. Doesn't feel jaded towards the rest of the world. And that's essentially what they're trying to go for. But it is interesting to kind of look at both movies and see all of the kids in the 1971 film along with Wilder and see how they are posed with all of these different, like, problems. And they need to think about it and choose, am I going to do this? Am I going to be a good person? Yeah. And they are then learning from the lessons of the other children or the other adults in the room.
Yeah.
Whereas this one was, very young, very naive, and is, Wonka's, like, stepping off the boat and is like, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And sure, his dreams are grand and he is ready to take on the world with his, infamous chocolate. But it didn't really seem like there was any... reality in that sense,
right? Yeah,
where he just managed to get by and, like, do everything that he wanted to do, and maybe that was just the imagination, playing into everything. But for me, when I look back at it, it was just too much imagination to where it felt kind of silly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no reality to it. Like you were saying, like, some things don't work just out of necessity, and then, he has no money, but then he has these incredible contraptions that would have cost thousands of dollars to make, and, things like, and where's he getting his ingredients for his chocolates? And, like, is he just meant to have it, and then he is just magic? Like, they don't explain that. Like, Willy Wonka wasn't magic. He was just super quirky and inventive in the book, and then in the original movie. Even in the Tim Burton movie, he's just this wacky dude that has
great ideas
inventions,
and
And this one, they made him, like, actual magic. The original also, I wouldn't compare it so much, but the fact that they're lending it to him, like, I mean, it's his name, it's his song, like, they're actually making you think about the original.
Right.
Half of that movie plays out like a documentary. It's played very straight and very real. It's a real world, and there's this crazy guy in the real world. And this felt like this crazy guy in his crazy world. Like, it wasn't reality.
Right. And, you know, maybe we're being too literal about it, but I feel like if you were going to have this, you know, new movie creation for a new generation that can love on Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and the whole idea of it, why not make it so that it kind of instills that same magic that the 1971 version had, right? Which leads me to the next segue. When you look back on Paddington, especially Paddington 2, yes, they use CGI in Paddington.
Right.
But the thing with that movie is that the CGI added to the movie. It was never a distraction from that movie, which made it genuinely so special and enjoyable. It's one of our favorite movies. Yeah. And so I think, sure, maybe we had high expectations going into this one because it was the same director and the same writer. But I truly believe that there is a fine line between using CGI to tell a story or using CGI to add to your story.
Yes. Right. And it's meant to be a tool, not a crutch.
Yeah, and they dropped the ball on this one personally because it just really took me out of the movie. It did not feel real in any sense. Whereas when I watched the 1971 version, I dreamed of being in that world.
Right, it was real. It was something tangible. There was something there to touch. Yeah,
I wanted to eat those little daffodil flower cups and you know, stick my hand in the mushroom that had the whipped cream on top. Like there was just something so magical that made you want to transport into that world.
Right.
Whereas this one, I didn't feel that magic.
No, some things obviously can't be done without CGI.
Sure, of course.
Especially when you're telling story like they're floating on balloons and things like that.
Right.
Like, obviously, some things cannot be done practically.
Yeah.
But they had an opportunity to do that.
Right.
You know, like Jurassic Park's amazing because they use the CGI sparingly, and the rest of the time it's like a puppet, or you know, like they're actually like using it to enhance the story, not in replace of the story. This was just a smattering of color, and it was like it almost felt like watching Mario again.
There's a lot of other movies that we could talk about where they could have honed in on this and said, you know, we're going to try that and maybe go a little bit higher, but still kind of level things out so that it's not so in your face and grandiose.
Yeah.
But I loved that it was a musical. I thought it was really fun. Timothée Chalamet is great. I did not think that he could pull off this role, and I was genuinely surprised in the charisma and the singing and I felt like the consistency of the acting was really great. And then, not to mention, you have a really great cast as well that also holds up. I mean, the love interest between Olivia Colman and Tom Davis is hilarious. And
great supporting cast.
Yeah, you know, they add that kind of gusto to the you know, to the whole movie.
So yeah, and that's the issue. There is fun in there. There is whimsy. There is cleverness and cuteness and like, I like that. But it's, I think, just because of the artificial nature of so much of it, it distracts and it takes away from those beautiful moments.
Well, yeah, because even like, sorry, spoilers, but even in the, you know, when he gets into the inn and he is stuck in the inn and has to, you know, work and pay back all of this money or whatever. The fact that he was so quick to get out of, you know, he just knew these maneuvers and knew these little tricks of the trade where he could get out of these situations, but then still somehow not get caught. I was like,
I was never in danger of him getting caught.
Yeah, there was never really any
real stakes.
Yeah,
there were stakes because they were all like indentured servants, but they seemed to be able to do whatever they wanted at the same time,
and be so clever enough to figure this out.
Yes,
you know, like it's not like
it took like 2 weeks. It seemed, you know, to get out of this mess, but I think it's sad to say, but there's something lacking in the movie.
I mean, you know, and maybe it could have been a thing where working with Warner Brothers and working during a pandemic, I'm sure it wasn't the easiest thing. And a lot of movies, unfortunately, have either missed the mark or have suffered because of the pandemic. So maybe that was a thing and they didn't have as many resources as they actually wanted to. And maybe that's why they had to lean into CGI so much.
That's true.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I genuinely haven't seen any real interviews that talk about anything like that.
No.
So maybe they just aren't going to really unsurface anything and talk about that. They're just going to promote it and, be happy with what they achieved, which is amazing. That's great. But I am curious to see, was this because of the studios and their kind of way that they wanted to tell the story? How much creative freedom did Simon and Paul have?
That's true. Yeah, I mean, least offensive, least, drama, like if they can just be like, all right, we got a really big star and then it's very clean. It's, by the beat, exactly what you'd want in a movie. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
So it does feel a little stale, a little manufactured, a little AI, a little studio interference.
Honestly,
now that you say that, I mean, and that's what it's like to work in the studio system.
Yeah.
That's why we've really resisted it so much, because we want to be able to have creative control and tell our own stories exactly how we want to tell them, and we're kind of working out. Like, even though people are speculating that the Wish movie, the 100-year anniversary movie, was like AI generated, because it was so like by the numbers and so just like unspecial and unmagical, and it's like it seems like a computer wrote this.
So a message to all of the future creators and the existing creators now.
Yes.
Just because we have these resources that are, supposed to be game-changing, life-changing, all of these different things, does not necessarily mean that it is a good thing for film and for TV and for the future of creative. In good movies that tell a great story, overly used CGI, and maybe some AI that just like, it has the bare bones, but it doesn't have the depth or the imagination
or the heart
or the heart of a writer or of a person.
Yeah. Well, and I think with the death of the superhero movie we've seen this year, like, people are and the only ones that succeeded were the ones that were good. Like it's the same thing. It's like, just because it's a superhero movie, it doesn't mean it's going to be good.
Right.
And the same idea of just like using the same formula, with diminishing returns. And I think audiences want real stories, and people aren't going to settle for crap. The medium is 100 years old now. Like, it's kind of exhausted. Like, we've had strides, and recently they're all in technical aspects.
Yeah.
None of them are in like, wow, they created a new idea of what a story could be, or how to tell a story, or like, modern cinema has really only sped up, taken away, and the only real improvements, besides from acting, and has been the technical aspects of the thing, rather than like the writing is kind of just peaked in like the 90s. It's all just rehashing old ideas. We haven't had any fresh ideas in a long time.
I know.
And I think it's all existing IP, and I think we're gonna hopefully we can, as artists, get away from that. We can use that as a tool if you want to like uncover some stuff, but like, to build it yourself, you need to take those inspirations and then use your creativity and your inspiration to create something new out of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like Wonka, they didn't do that. They just regurgitated stuff and then covered it in color and CGI to make it look good.
Right.
And but it's like a cake, a really well-made cake, but in the inside it's ashes, like, there's nothing to it.
Yeah.
It's like,
as Paul would say, it's a soggy bottom.
A soggy bottom. Yeah, it's just missing something.
Yeah, still felt a little flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think also, too, another thing that needs to be out is remakes. Like, I'm just so tired of
existing
seeing
IP.
The
same stuff.
Thing. It's like, I just watched that because I wanted that nostalgia, and now I have to watch this one, again, with the same story but just different people.
Right.
I mean, that just goes for so many different things that are
everything these days. Well, it's so funny because even like they'd say, oh, that worked 10, 15 years ago, let's remake that, and now it's like, well, that worked 4 years ago, let's remake Moana, and it's like, what?
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
That's where we are.
What are we in? That's a really great endpoint of just kind of thinking about, okay, if this was one of the last blockbusters of 2023.
Yeah.
What is going to be in 2024? What are we supposed to expect? What is creative and writing and directing and acting? What are all of these things going to mean in, next year and then some in the next 20 10, 30 years. You know what I mean?
Well, right now, it's like the only people that can make it a movie are a huge studio.
Yeah.
Where it's a team of people creating a product that isn't actually art.
Yes.
It's just reproducing something that's already been done in a different form. Or it's these auteur directors that have earned their stripes, that have been doing it for 40 years.
Right.
That are getting these huge budget movies. And they're banking on just massive returns on select massive budget projects. And I think they need to go back to that model of $30 million.
Yes.
Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. You go and do it. Way less pressure on the studio. It's a way less big a gamble. But then those $30 million movies have the potential for making money back.
Yeah.
$100 million should be a lot of money.
That's a lot of money to
make
a movie.
But if it costs double that to make it, that's a bad return. And it's crazy because it's like, where is all the money going? Because I'm not seeing it on the screen. The CGI must cost a lot of money because that's all I'm looking at.
I think that's what it is.
But it's nothing.
It's editing and CGI.
But it's all empty. It's nothing.
And imagine being an actor and you're trying to make this, amazing, colorful, incredible movie that has such a rich history with generations of people. But you are on a soundstage with hardly anything around you.
Looking at a tennis ball, yeah.
You're looking at a tennis ball. You're looking at this, taped wall of what is going to be this magical tree or this magical castle. And you are just surrounded by crew.
But I think because, these people are telling these studios what they want by their wallets. They're not going to see these movies. These movies are flopping because they're bad. And everyone hears that they're bad, so they don't go and see them. And I think that now they're going to have to pay attention because it's like, oh, we're not getting the returns we need to. We need to change something. It's not... This model isn't working. We need to go back to more original ideas. Singular vision. Yeah. Yes. Movies that are made with care and love and respect for the audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
That too.
And for the art that is filmmaking. Yeah.
Right. Imagination. It's funny how a movie can be all about imagination. And there are parts in this movie where there is imagination in his brain. Yeah. But we don't actually feel the imagination. No. We can't go to that world because it's not real. It doesn't exist.
Overall, I'd give it a B. Just for the fact
all the pieces together.
It's like when you're grading, it's like some sections above average and then below and it's all worked out probably to a B.
Cast, great, awesome. Maybe the idea a little bit and the musical aspect, okay, bring it on in. But for the most part, it was just kind of
a little lackluster, yeah. And that's unfortunate. Again, I didn't really think about this until you said it, that there's probably a lot of studio involvement and that can really sacrifice a movie's vision and an original intent. So we're trying not to be too hard. Sorry. But good. Hopefully this is more a critique of the studios than of the actual creatives that then have to bend over backwards and change their and sacrifice their original vision, things like that. Because Paul King can make a great movie.
Amazing.
So I don't know what was lost.
I feel like it was studio, not enough time, pandemic. I feel like that was just kind of a trifecta maybe. And unfortunately, it might have suffered because of it. Yeah. So no hard feelings on anyone involved, genuinely. Yeah. This is just an open dialogue of, what are we doing now and how are we going to change this in the future?
Yes.
If we are going to be a heavily, technology-based society with movies and creative and whatever, where are we going to go from here?
Right.
And what does that mean for directors and writers and actors? Genuinely.
Pass that off to you. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
And we'll keep discussing that as the year goes forward. And we're going to keep on working on our productions and trying to do it differently and go forward with that mentality of, like an artist's vision, but with the audience in mind.
That's the goal.
And I think being able to analyze these other movies and talk about how it makes us feel, it will then inform our decisions later on, and then we'll be able to share those with you as well, and talk about them as we create them as well, and then encourage you to do the same.
Yes.
So thanks so much for checking us out. This is another Brave podcast. We are coming back in 2024 with a lot more, so be on the lookout for more. Brittany, Dave, they call us Brave. Have a great one. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.